Planet Earth.
Some call me nature.
I am very passionate about the planet
Earth.
A living, breathing planet capable of sustaining whatever life forms we see fit to deposit on it.
Spock, judging by the pollution content of the atmosphere, I believe we have arrived.
Is the planet stupid?
No. It's the planet stupid.
And it needs our help. She's Belinda Waymouth, our eco-journalist. Yeah, good morning. And I don't know even where to start. I have record temperatures, deaths of humans and others as a result of these record temperatures worldwide. I've got the death of coral reefs. I've got habitats in free fall. Spin the wheel of disaster and tell me where you'd like to start, Belinda.
Oh, Mark, I am passionate about the planet too, and I am freaked out right now. I mean, this has been such a super intense summer. And, we talked about this before the summer, what was going to happen when the La Nina, which that weather system had been operating for the past several years and had basically been shielding us from the warmth that the warmth that we've been putting into the atmosphere, because last year was a record greenhouse gas emissions. We're supposed to be going in the other direction, but we're not. And now, La Nina is over. And so that blanketing, that sort of obfuscating of what was happening is done. And now we are in El Nino. And so that's a heating up time. So the Pacific is super hot, but also the Atlantic is really hot. I mean, those temperatures in Florida, 101 degrees, ocean temperature.
And I'm so glad you mentioned it, because I see, this isn't just hyperbole on my part. Hyperbole is a ding word. Belinda used a ding word too. I forget what it is. Sorry.
Obfuscating.
Obfuscating. Thank you. That was it. The heat in the Atlantic is such that it's killing off, but I mean at a record pace, killing off, not just endangering, coral. Those coral reefs now, they've had to go to excessive lengths to preserve them or to revive them, meaning they try to get a little bit of reef, I think. You can, here it is, thank you. They try to get a little bit of reef, right, Belinda? And they take it and they literally pull it out of the hot waters of the Atlantic and try to have it reproduce in some kind of controlled environment. Can you speak to that for a moment?
Well, this is so, we've been talking about this for a really long time. What's happening to coral in these super, as the oceans heat up? Because, the ocean is, I keep on saying it, and it's really important for us to know this. It's absorbed 90% of our excess heat, but to its own peril. And so what was happening, first of all, was this coral nursery that you can see in this picture, these are pieces of, elk and I think it's called longhorn or bighorn. And so these citizen scientists and scientists in Florida who are part of these organizations who are trying desperately to save the coral, moved it to cooler parts of the ocean. But now what they're doing is they're getting pieces of coral that are still alive and they're taking it out of the ocean and putting it into tanks on land to save it, because the ocean is too hot. And what's really important for people to understand is that when you have a species like a coral that lives in warm equatorial ocean, or any species, that species is highly adapted to live in that hot habitat. And they don't have a lot of wiggle room either side to get that much hotter or that much cooler. They're already sort of at their evolutionary maximum by just being able to live in that hot habitat. And the other thing that's happening is that, the ocean is heating up too fast for species to actually be able to adapt to it. So what these people, in Florida are doing, and I mean, they are talking about, this is like looking at an apocalypse. They are beside themselves, to save this coral. But this is a really extreme measure to take it out of the ocean and put it in tanks on land where they're going to conserve it. They're going to, it breeds asexually. So, basically clone it. But where are they going to put it? Because if the ocean doesn't cool down, you can't put it back into a hot ocean. It's not adapted for that. And they were already moving corals away. There's an incredible, huge reef called the Coral Triangle. And I put it on my Twitter feed this morning, and I pinged you, Mark. So the Coral Triangle is in Indonesia, the Solomon Islands, the Philippines, Malaysia, and it's enormous. It covers an area, I think, twice the size of the US. And scientists there years ago were moving those corals further north and further south to get to cooler oceans. Well, 44% of the ocean is in a marine heat wave right now. I mean, that's getting towards half the ocean, statistically. This is bonkers.
So my question might be, I had the same thought you did, which is when you can rehabilitate this coral in a controlled environment, where do you put it after you've rehabilitated it? You can't put it back into that habitat because that habitat no longer exists in a way that would support that life. And the other point you make, and I just want to revisit it or underscore it for those listening or watching, is that you have some species, I would say humans would be among the species, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, that can slowly adapt to a changing planet and changing conditions climatically in that planet, but or in the ecosystem in which they exist. Among those things is not things like coral and all other sea life. They have not the flexibility, if you will, from an evolutionary standpoint to be able to do that. And so, yet that's why you end up with these huge kill-offs and die-offs across wide areas of the oceans and waterways across the world.
Yeah. Well, I told you guys, when I was back from New Zealand, that we've got fish just, coming ashore dead because the ocean is too hot in New Zealand. And they just had that huge beaching of, was it right whales in Australia? And they saw them coming and they tried to get them back into the ocean, and then they just re-beached themselves because these animals are trying to escape an ecosystem that is no longer, hospitable to them. And the problem with the ocean, and especially, corals, they are, they're fixed, they're not, they can't swim to cooler waters. But, speaking to your point of how adaptable are we, I mean, look how badly we're doing and all that's in the news about human beings and how we cope with heat waves and how, we go into sort of a toxic shock state in the heat because we can't get rid of the toxins in our bodies. That's, before we get to dehydration and other things. And then ironically, what we're doing right now is because the planet is so hot, Southern Europe, Eastern Asia, tons of the US. What are we doing? We're turning on the air conditioning. What powers the air conditioning? Fossil fuels. So, the cruel irony of that is the thing that's making us hot, we're then using to cool us down because we can't cope with the hot. So we're making it hotter. We had that listener, I think her name is Janet, a couple of weeks ago when she'd read about the temperatures of Florida. She messaged you and I, like, what can I do? What can I do? One of the things that people need to understand, and this to me is truly criminal. We are still subsidizing the fossil fuel industry. And I've read, math on it that says, to the tune of $11 million a minute, the fossil fuel industry is being subsidized. That just has to stop. Those are the whales that beach themselves in Australia. And
it's horrifying.
It's awful. It's awful. And then they get on the beach and there are people there waiting to, push them back into the ocean. And then the whales just come ashore again. It's like, no, we're done. We're done.
Well, I mean, it's like pushing, it would be like pushing you back into a burning home. You know what I mean? It's like they're going to die if they stay in that house. And that house in this case is the ocean. They're going to die either way. And it's horrifying to see it. What the, so you were saying what we can do though. So that is awful that we subsidize these awful fossil fuel, dirty energy essentially. So what is your point that we should put pressure on legislators to stop this subsidizing of those industries?
Yeah. Look, the fossil fuel party needs to be over. This just needs to be done. And what was interesting also, this week. And, what was really, what they're really talking about in Florida is that, we have to address climate change. Basically yesterday, we have to start getting our emissions down because the consequences are too dire, and we're all feeling it this summer. It's not just what's happening, to the whales and the coral reefs. Human beings are really feeling it. And so this has to be addressed and has to be addressed now. And that article that I sent you, about this report that the Audubon Society just sent out. So they sent it out to their members because bird lovers really hate the human infrastructure that kills their beloved birds. And I completely get it. The collisions with buildings, those are awful, blah, blah, blah. But what a lot of bird lovers are really against is all the infrastructure that's going to be needed for renewable energy so that we can make this transition to renewables. We can, get to 100% renewables by 2035. And, the infrastructure is going to be huge. It's, 10,000 miles per year just of, electric power lines being put up. And
right. I don't mean to interrupt, but just to make the point, they have to connect the alternative energy, the clean energy to the power grid. That's what you're talking about. So
yeah. So wherever it's being produced. So if it's being produced in Arizona, which is where a lot of solar is going to come from, and it needs to come to California, we have to have a solid, grid to get it there. And what the Audubon Society is saying, because the real purists, say that birders, we don't want renewable energy if it hurts our beloved birds. We don't want it. We don't want more infrastructure. We don't like wind turbines. But, I've cited this, this is peer-reviewed science, that fossil fuel power plants kill 30 times more birds per kilowatt hour than wind turbines. So my point being, we have to get off fossil fuels. And if you're a birder and you love birds, if you're in Florida and you love your corals, this is just a transition that we have to make. I know I sound like a total sort of, I'm always beating this drum, but I'm going to keep beating it because this is just the reality of where we're at. And when you see this record hot summer and you hear about, these stories that are coming out of Texas and other states of these workers who work outside, the guy in Texas who his employers thought was, goofing off and was high on drugs, he was dying from heat, from the heat that his body had absorbed. It wasn't that he was, on meth or something, So it's really, it's really time that we get right-sized. And yes, we do have to push our elected officials to stop this ridiculous subsidy of a power generation source.
Well, we subsidize we subsidize dirty power, and we subsidize dirty agriculture, I would say. The meat industry is subsidized. The chicken industry, animal agriculture is subsidized in this country, and it sickens me. It absolutely sickens me. And we don't have a choice in it, just like we don't have a choice in the military budget. Now, there's a lot to be angry about, but I would put this on that list. And the world's got to fall in line. And honestly, as I see projects getting greenlit worldwide, it frustrates me. I'm talking about dirty energy projects being greenlit worldwide. We've got to wrap up, Belinda. I love having you on, and these are stories worth following up on. And I think it's sort of, for those who are curious, it's worth taking this sort of sampler that you provide us every week and following up on your own on them. I mean, this is my call to the audience. If you have an interest in this, follow up on it and share with me anything, and I'll push it on to Belinda. You can find Belinda on social media at Belinda Waymouth. You see, we have it up there through the segment. Weymouth is Waymouth. I also want to congratulate you on a personal level for beating cancer. Tough, and I love it.
Thanks.
All right.
Yeah, I'm tough.
You are tough, kid. I love you. Thank you. Belinda Waymouth, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. See you next week.
Yes.
More.
It's the planet stupid. No. It's the planet stupid.
Next time, only on The Mark Thompson Show.
Hi, it's Mark, and I thought that was great. Hit the notification bell. You'll know whenever there's a new video being dropped, and please subscribe to our channel to help us save the universe.